Now there is a one thing that I have found in Star Citizen PTU 3.0, and that is that fuel is now a thing. Now, half of half of the system itself is pretty much implemented. The rest is not, because that's coming with the refueling. Basically the Starfarer mega update, as we can call it. But I'm not sure if this should be in yet. Let me let me go a little bit in detail on that one. Um, Fuel sucks. It really does. If you go out of fuel, there is nothing you can do now. And fuel is really inconsistent with the ship to ship, basically. In some cases, fuel will never drain. And I'm not saying that as in fuel replenish, no. It seems like the air intakes on ships and such doesn't do anything. They're just there. Which means that the Archimedes in terms of, the Merlin and Archimedes thing will be totally useless. Because I'm not seeing fuel replenish at all in the game. And I've flown like Gladiuses, Carfuals, Super Hornets, all the way up to the bigger ships such as the Starfarer and Caterpillar. And I've not seen them in 3.0 replenish at all. This is a tiny bit of a major thing, because on said ships as the Gladius, your fuel consumes second to none. However, on your bigger ships, such as the Retaliator and Caterpillar, they just drain. And it's it is really annoying, because twice I happened to get stuck. One was actually at Daymar, basically after I had recorded my Caterpillar landing on Daymar. And the reason for that is apparently the Caterpillar and Retaliator, for that matter, drains its fuel incredibly fast, and I do not know why. The thing is, on the Caterpillar, actually I had a lot of fuel left before I started flying off from Daymar. However, when I activated my boost, everything just went,
Engines offline.
and that really sucked. And don't get me wrong, I do like having fuel in game. It makes for an interesting, mechanic, even though, most people would hate it because, running out of fuel is probably the worst thing ever, because then you would probably have to, call for help or something like that from a Starfarer or somebody who can tow you away, like a Crucible. But I've never been against it. I've never been against it even in such games such as Elite Dangerous, where fuel is everything. If you're running out of fuel, then you're fucked in the universe. I've managed to get empty once, and that was when I understood that you got to have a ship that can jump, and you got to have a fuel scoop. In this game, there is no fuel scoop, and I do not think that. I think that currently the air intakes are bugged, because they do not replenish either if you're in space or ground, or in an atmosphere of any kind. They do not replenish from my flying, and it's somewhat annoying. I personally think that fuel should be taken out of the system as it currently is, or it needs to be heavy modified, because you cannot have a Caterpillar or a Retaliator that can go from point A to B to C and then stop halfway through C. I went, and this is basically a short clip of the video. I went from Port Olisar to one of the Cryastros to security post Korea to get off a bounty after I fucking nuked that Caterpillar. And then I went to, go and fly off and, land on Selin, because I hadn't been on Selin yet. And midways from flying there, my retaliator is just empty. And I do not understand why until I actually see that my fuel is 0. And it turns out that both the Retaliator and Caterpillar, because I didn't notice this, that my fuel was on 0 on the Caterpillar, it was just empty. So I'm basically saying, fuel needs to be looked into heavily before it's released. Because you cannot have a ship such as the Caterpillar or the Retaliator run out of fuel from just flying for 5 to 10 minutes. Another factor in this is also that, you know, the old flight model is gone, basically. The one that were in 2.0 to 2. All the way up to 2.6 when they actually changed it. Because before you had the precision mode, the space combat maneuver, or yeah, the SCM basically, and cruise mode. And what that basically did was, you know, you could either fly slow, you could either fly normal, or you could fly an immense speed with little maneuverability. And how this is actually better is actually comes down to when you're flying in cruise mode, because cruise mode right now is dumb. I like that you can just control yourself and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go fast without pushing any buttons. That is good. But I would like a secure way to, you know, being able to maintain that speed, because the moment you barely deviate from your actually aligned path without having being decoupled, you will start braking or use your space brakes at full throttle. You will consume lots of fuel on that. And even when you're, you know, you're realigning yourself, you will use fuel on, you know, boosting. And you will ultimately just run out. If they did like, you know, like they did before, where you actually just activated your cruise mode and then you could move slightly, that would be perfect. But as it is now, if you barely move, you will fuck up. So CIG, I do really recommend, please look a little bit more into fuel, because as it is right now, it is really broke among the bigger ships. I've tested it against the Constellation, the Retaliator versus Constellation. Constellation doesn't drain as much, which is weird because the Constellation is smaller. Or, well, that's actually probably why you know, doesn't drain as much, because it is smaller. But the Retaliator shouldn't drain as much as it should, like, holy shit. But yeah, pretty much fuel needs a good looking into. Because if you're going to run out of fuel just like that without refueling being in the game yet, then there's going to be a lot of problems for people with bigger ships. Because they drain way too much, and we don't get anything back from the air intakes. But that is just my part in the PTU. And that is one thing that you know, made me want to talk about it. So anyways, thank you all for listening, and fly safe. And please, do not run out of fuel. You will hate it.